Hello, Wild One. Welcome back to Too Much, Not Enough. I'm your host, Hannah, and it is just you and me today, cutie. So let's get messy and magical together as we talk about the quiet grief that comes with friendship breakups. But before we dive into today's episode, I've got a little update for you. First, I just want to say thank you. Truly. Every single message, DM, or share that you've sent me about this podcast means the absolute world to me. I honestly pinch myself every time I open up my messages and see another one of you in there talking about how this has resonated. Knowing that these conversations are landing, giving you clarity, motivation, maybe slaying a bit of shame, or even that little heart punch of resonance. I'll never, ever take that for granted. Please keep them coming. Now, in true Hannah fashion, I launched this podcast a little bit unconventionally, which honestly tracks. I do most things in my life unconventionally. Most experts would say that you need at least 8 to 10 episodes batched before going live with your podcast. I batched 2. I was just far too excited to get it out there. And while I do not regret that for a second, because this show was birthed exactly the way that it was meant to, and it is authentic to its core, I have been playing a little catch up behind the scenes because growth is messy and it happens in real time, right? We learn our lessons and then we figure out how to maybe do better next time. So I'm hitting pause for just a moment, a mini break to catch my breath, record some incredible new conversations, and come back recharged and re-inspired on July 16th. What's coming, you ask? Well, we're going to dive into reclaiming your sensual side, unpacking whether resiliency is in fact a dirty word. We're going to explore the therapeutic power of sound and talk about building a business that feels like you. And that's just the beginning. There's so much more coming. I'm honestly so excited to bring this to you, and we've got some amazing guests joining. So make sure that you're following along on Instagram at Too Much Not Enough podcast for all of the behind the scenes goodness. And I'll meet you right back here on July 16th. All right, let's get into it. Today's episode was voted on by you, the listeners. And I am not surprised one bit that you chose this topic because I've always wondered why we don't talk more about friendship heartbreak. I've gone through various versions of this in my life, some a little bit easier to get over and some that took me years. And I really do wish more movies and songs were written about the quiet grief that aches in you for far longer than most romantic breakups that I have gone through. I am incredibly lucky to have a group of friends, particularly female friends, around me who are unbelievable. I honestly pinch myself on a regular basis with the absolute powerhouse people that surround me. They inspire me all the time and they are so supportive. And that didn't happen by accident. Friendships do take work, especially as you get older. But what happens when you're putting in the effort and it's no longer making sense? It's just something doesn't feel aligned. Or worse, you think that things are going great and then you get quietly ghosted, which fucking hurts. I know. My earliest memories of friendship heartbreak stem back to elementary school when I was probably around 10 years old, and friendships were pretty fickle back then. I mean, kids are all over the place as they should be. They're figuring themselves out and they're also trying to survive in the social landscape that is school. And it is not easy. I cannot even imagine the kids these days growing up with social media and like a window into every party that they haven't been invited to. I truly don't know how they do it. And you're just kind of trying to figure out how to fit in, and a lot of your relationships are that of convenience. You know, who's in your class this year, who likes the same things as you, or who lives on your street. And that's beautiful because, you know, naturally that works. You meet a lot of people and you create a lot of friendships that way. And then as you get older, it becomes still convenience, but a little bit more intentional. As you kind of get to know yourself and what you like and what you don't like, it becomes a bit more intentional. And so I definitely dealt with a lot of conflict in relationships when I was little. Big feelings and maybe coming across as a little bossy didn't always work for the girls that I was friends with. And then when I went into high school, I went to a high school sort of outside of my community, my district. So it was a whole new group of people and it was really exciting. And I became friends with this one girl. And especially at that age, my friendships burned bright. They were intense. They were just this intense emotional love affair, spending all my time with this person. And inevitably, that doesn't always last forever. And they would often combust. And I remember this one girl in grade 9, we were inseparable. Everyone would be like, where I was, she was, and vice versa. And we just spent all of our time together. And then she moved schools, I think the following year or the year after, I can't quite remember. And there was definitely heartbreak with that because again, that element of convenience, we were no longer in class together every day. We lived in different towns and we just didn't see each other anymore. And then I watched her become friends with other girls and have that bright, intense relationship. And it was sad and it was painful. It was kind of okay because I understood why it was happening because we just didn't have that time together anymore. But I will say I have had experiences where it's not so much because of the convenience and it's more of an active choice that other person no longer wants to hang out with me or be around me. I had a friend who I knew since I was 10 years old and we were so close and just close, not from a place of convenience necessarily, but from a place of like our souls just connected. And I've realized that more in older age, kind of looking back. Of course, I didn't understand it fully then, but there was just like a magnetic draw of us to each other because in fact, we met in elementary school, we lived in the same town and obviously had classes together, but then high school came and like I said, I went to school, at least a 30-minute drive from where I lived. And so it wasn't about convenience anymore. We really had to make the effort to hang out together after school and on weekends and in the summer. And we still had that magnetic draw. And this went into university and it was something until it wasn't. And I was heartbroken. She made the decision that having me in her life was no longer what made sense for her at the time. And she really just pulled away completely and communication stopped and we didn't see each other. And I was devastated. I just could not understand why this was happening. And we obviously had mutual friends who we both still saw. And it was this like weird underlying thing to all of, at least I can't speak for her, but all of my interactions with those people and the ache in my heart that I felt for years about that friendship coming to an end at times was all consuming. And I think it was partly because of the rejection and it was partly because of not understanding what I had done wrong at the time. And then it was also just the like desperation of wanting to talk to her and not being able to. But more than anything, it was, I loved spending time with this person. I really enjoyed her company and just the energetic exchange that we had when we were together, which again, I've only really understood later in life. I didn't fully understand it at the time, but I missed her. And I remember thinking, fuck, no one talks about this. Like, you are prepared most of your life once you start paying attention to, in my case, boys and liking them and getting into relationships with them, that a lot of those inevitably have an end, especially when you're younger. You're not, dating someone in grade 7 and thinking, we're going to be together forever. So it's almost like you're prepared for that end to come. That doesn't remove how painful it can be when that end comes. Romantic heartbreak is real and visceral and it sucks. But there is an element of friendship heartbreak that blindsides you, because we don't talk about friendships coming to an end. We don't talk about the inevitable change of seasons and the fact that people are in your life, as that saying goes, for a season or a reason, and that doesn't guarantee that they'll always stay in your life. And yeah, that was just such a like, whoa moment for me of being like, I just didn't expect this. I thought we'd be friends forever. And the thing too with it was like, we didn't have this big blowout fight where it was like we were both so angry and we kind of stormed out of each other's lives. It was like a quiet untangling and a very conscious choice by one party. And listen, we are now friends again. And I will never blame her or resent her for that decision that she made. She made the decision she needed to make in the moment. And I'm sure that her reasons were very valid. I can be a lot. I can be very penetrating in my energy, and I can be demanding of the people I love. And I have learned to temper that in my older age, but that was not tempered back in my early and mid 20s at all. And so I don't blame her and I don't resent her. And I am eternally grateful that she's back in my life. And having come back into my life so many years later, I now also understand why we were so magnetically drawn to each other. There's just something about her that my soul feels at home in her presence. Ooh, I'm getting a little unexpectedly emotional there. Yeah, my soul feels at home in her presence. And she listens to this podcast. And so I think she might know that I'm talking about her. And so if she is, know that I love you. And I'm so glad that you are back in my life. But yeah, it was kind of this blind side, and it was kind of this, it was an ache for so long. And I don't know if I'm alone in this, but it was hard for me to understand why it was lasting for so long, like why I couldn't move on. And the same thing happened with another friend of mine, this time a male friend who I'd met in high school briefly. And then we ended up going to universities in the same town and became really close. My group of girlfriends and his group of guy friends we spent so much time together. We did, family dinners every Sunday, where a couple from the group would cook, and then we'd all eat together, and then we'd all smoke a lot of weed and sit and watch a movie. And it was, gosh, so beautiful. I wish I still did that. In fact, I might re-implement family dinner Sundays with friends. But this friend was, again, just like a soul connection for me. I loved him. I loved spending time with him. We got along so well. And I found out by accident, I think it was the final year of university. So 4 years of like close friendship at this point, had spent so much time with my family when we were both home together because we were from the same town. And I accidentally found out that he had feelings for me, that he liked me. And obviously that shifts the dynamic immediately. Though I really, really pretended and tried to kind of shut that out because the friendship meant so much to me and I didn't want to jeopardize it. And I didn't have the same feelings back for him, probably mostly because I was just too young and I knew I wanted to experience a lot of life. And had I gone down that path, I maybe would have settled down into a life that wasn't meant for me. And so I'm grateful for having that resolve to not say, well, we're such good friends and he likes me, so maybe we should try it. But that was obviously painful for him. And he watched me, because we were friends, date a lot of guys and complain a lot about a lot of guys and be treated like crap by a lot of guys, which frustrated the hell out of him. But we sort of maintained that friendship post-university as well. And then he met someone, his now wife, and they have a beautiful family together from what I've seen on social media. And he phased me out of his life. And again, I understand why he did that, but it broke me. I was so upset. And I tried. I held on to that for a long time. I tried to keep the friendship going, to maintain communication, to get together. I was forcing something that just was no longer there because I didn't want to sit with the pain of that friendship going away. Again, it was another example of like, this wasn't a choice for me. I would still be friends with him till this day, I think. If I was the one making the choice, I wasn't. And I kind of just had to, I don't think I honored it particularly well, I will say, but I did come to the realization that I had to honor that and I had to let it go. And I sat in grief of that friendship ending for years. And I would think about him often, and then I wouldn't for a while, and then something would remind me of him, and it would just be this tsunami of grief again, and grief in a different way than maybe a romantic breakup is, or when we talk about death and loss. But grief can take on so many forms. And I think going back, or if I could go back, I should say, I would have let myself feel that grief more. I would have identified it as grief and moved through the stages in a more present and conscious way, maybe. I don't know if that would have helped, but maybe I would have. And the thing is like when you have relationships like that in your life that end, the pain, I think, amounts to how important they were to you. And it is the fact that you no longer have somewhere to put that love and that connection that you had. And so it feels so confusing again, because it's like, I wasn't prepared for this. This wasn't a romantic relationship that I knew getting into would possibly one day have an expiry date. You don't think that friendships are going to have an expiry date. And so those were my two like really visceral experiences of friendship heartbreak, where I could just essentially do nothing about it, but try and feel my feelings and move forward with my life. And I'm so abundant in friends that I still had these incredible groups of people around me that I could funnel that love and connection into. And then as I got older, I had some different experiences with friendship breakups. The decision sat more with me than with the other person. And as a projector, which is human design for anyone out there who knows it, I'm an emotional 1/4 projector, and projectors have a very penetrating aura. And what that means, at least in my experience, is that I can see the threads that maybe other people miss. When I meet someone, I have this ability, which I used to hate because it felt like judgment to me when I didn't understand it, but I now really cherish it, is that when I meet people, I can kind of immediately see the journey that they could go on to feel more aligned in their soul. And that means that I see what is immediately missing or misaligned for them. And I find it very difficult to see that and then not be able to do anything about it. And so actually going back to the friendship that I said with my female friend that ended, I think this was a factor in it. I didn't know how to bite my tongue when I was younger, when I saw these things. Because just because I can see them does not mean that someone is ready to hear them or if they will ever want to hear them. And it is not my job or my place to tell someone that I can see exactly what they need to kind of ascend to the next level of their life. And that is honestly one of the reasons I became a coach, because now people invite me in for that kind of insight. They pay me for that kind of insight. But when it comes to friends, it's not my job to say, hey, I can see what you're missing or what you're grappling with or what you're struggling with or the shit decision that you were about to make. And here's the shortcut to getting to a place where you feel happier and more fulfilled. It doesn't work like that. And so all of that said is that I would see in our sort of group friendships, the people who were going to fall off or fall out of the group often years before the rest of the friend group did. So I would identify something or a behavior or whatever that I knew just like wasn't going to align with the group's energy moving forward for much longer. And as I became better at understanding this, I would just keep quiet and let the chips fall as they may. And I have not once, I will say, been wrong about a particular person falling out of the friend group. And I don't say that with any glee because that is sad and hard for anyone. But I've been able to see it. I know it's coming. And when I was younger, I wasn't so good at keeping my mouth shut about it. But I think what is important about understanding this is that it is natural for friendships to dissolve, because you come together as a version of yourself and then you grow and evolve, and people grow and evolve at different rates, and people have experiences that happen in their lives that give them perspective shifts that then impact the relationships that they want to have with others. And so it is okay for you to be the person to say, this relationship, this friendship no longer serves me. I am going to step away from it. And honestly, I don't think that there's any right way to do that. I don't personally agree with ghosting, because I am someone whose mind will run wild with stories. And so I would prefer the direct, blunt, often painful message delivered of, hey, this is just not aligned for me anymore. I don't think that we can keep hanging out. And I say that from a perspective of like, you as an individual has made the decision that you no longer want to be part of this friendship. That person is still actively making an effort to engage, ask you to do things, hang out. They clearly don't fully understand that you are pulling away. And then I think it is a kindness to let them know, so that they can kind of have that like, okay, I got to move on. So I don't agree with full out ghosting, but I don't think there's a right way to do it. Do I think that honest conversations are important? Yeah, I do. I've had several of them with friends in the past, just being like, hey, listen, I love you and I would really like you to stay in my life. But what is happening here, this behavior, that isn't working for me. Are you still interested in being friends? Because if not, okay, let's part ways. But if you are, then how can we together make this work? And I've had like that exact conversation with a friend before. And thankfully, she received it well. And we went on to continue our friendship for many years. But yeah, like if you are feeling this pull that a friendship is no longer working for you, it might be really obvious. Like it might be like, no, this person is dragging me down. They're quote unquote toxic. Their behaviors keep pulling me back into a version of myself that I am trying to move forward from. Or it could be quieter. It could just be like, our lives are so different. We've evolved so much. We've chosen different paths. Maybe, one of you's chosen to have kids, the other hasn't. I don't know. But it could be a quieter kind of untangling from each other. And that's okay. It is okay that even though a relationship holds love and so much beautiful history, it's okay to move on, to move forward. And listen, if my experiences with friendship breakups are anything to say, some of those people come back into your life at a later date. Like that whole idea of set them free, and if they're meant to be yours or it's meant to be yours, it will return. That applies to friendships as well. You may need space, you may need a break. And if they're meant to come back into your life, they will. And that's beautiful. And if they're not, then that's okay. That ache and that pain will dull over time. But here's the thing that I want to be abundantly clear about. Friendships do take work. Like I said earlier, especially as you get older, there is a natural drift that happens in friendships, I think, especially in your 30s, where you have so much life going on. And you're no longer maybe going out Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. Your weekends are filled with just going to so-and-so's house and getting together over here and all of that. You start having to be more intentional about the setting time up to spend with these people, to reaching out to them and seeing how they are. And so it's important to really look at the friendship and think, okay, is this drifting for a reason? Or am I unwilling to get into the tough stuff that needs to happen in order for us to move to the next level chapter of our relationship? And putting work into friendships, putting work into staying in touch is rewarding if it's the right thing for you to do. Treating people like they are not disposable is a very important part of enduring friendships, and really having that self-awareness to understand, like, am I saying goodbye to this because it's right? Or am I saying goodbye to this because I don't want to put the energy or effort in that inevitably you have to for any relationship to work? And another piece that comes into this is the role of self-worth and boundaries. Friendships can sometimes become misaligned because they are damaging how you feel about yourself. Perhaps you have a friend who you get along with really well, but every time you mention to them something great that's going on in your life, they shut down. They're not particularly interested, or even worse, they dismiss it. And that can be so hurtful and really confusing. But you have to remember it's more about them than it is about you. And it's important that the people in your life celebrate your milestones, your achievements. And that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're devoid of jealousy. Of course, jealousy is going to come up when a friend says to you some exciting milestone she's hitting that maybe you really want, or you didn't know you wanted and she said it and now you do. But jealousy and excitement and support can coexist. You can feel like that kind of is a bit of a gut punch and also be like, I'm so excited for you, and lift the other person up and champion them and be, really happy for what's going on in their life. And that element of self-worth and boundarying comes in when you're identifying that this other person is not happy and excited for you, or not putting in the effort that you want in a friendship. And effort can take on many different forms. As someone with ADHD, I am terrible at responding to messages. I find them so overwhelming. And if I didn't use the unread feature, I would never answer half the people in my phone. And I know that that can be really tricky to be friends with. I'm so grateful to the people in my life who have made an effort to continue communication with me, even though they have to start the conversation a lot of the time. So, recognizing how that other person works and what effort looks like in them is important in that discerning of like, is this aligned or misaligned, and am I willing to accept the love language that they are providing to me, even though it's not necessarily the love language that I require. So how can we honor that goodbye that comes with friendship breakups while still trusting the evolution? Whether that is a decision that you are making about the relationship or the decision is being made for you by someone else. I think it goes back to recognizing that grief is real, and it is okay to feel it when a friendship ends, even though we haven't been taught that that is a normal thing to feel, and to really lean into the emotions that come with it, while at the same time having the self-awareness to regulate and not sort of lash out, but feel those feelings and make an effort to communicate directly. So if you are making the decision about a friendship ending, then you are communicating clearly and directly to that person, and vice versa. If that decision is being made for you, you are asking the questions. Is this salvageable? Can I do something different? Like, you are so important to me. Can we make this work? But at the end of the day, I think it's just recognizing that it's okay that people come into your life for certain seasons, some longer than others, and they will also leave your life. And that's part of evolving and growing and experiencing the full spectrum of life. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not a terrible person. You are not, somehow not lovable because a friendship has expired. That is part of life. And so if you have gone through this or you're currently experiencing it, I'm really sorry. It sucks. Make space for those feelings and know that other beautiful friendships will come along. In the same way that when you've gone through a romantic heartbreak, it feels like you'll never find love again, you will. And those people will always occupy a little corner of your heart, and you will always have that history with them. But sometimes when someone leaves, it's making space for something else incredible to come in. And when you look at it like that, it can be a little bit easier to move through the grief of friendship breakups. All right, that is our episode for today, my friends. Thank you again for listening and for supporting the podcast. If you haven't yet, please follow, rate, leave a comment on whatever platform that you are on, especially so that you can be notified when we come back. Swing in July 16th with some unbelievable episodes. While we're gone, I will miss you. I really will. If you haven't listened to all the episodes so far, then maybe go back and listen to them or re-listen to one that really landed with you. And before you know it, Too Much, Not Enough will be back in your life. Until next time.